What is going on YouTube? It is Matty Ice here, and today we are talking college football. And speaking of college football, we are talking the Big Ten. We're going to start off with the teams that are in the Big Ten, starting off with the East. The schools in this area are Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue, and Wisconsin. We're going to talk about Illinois real quick, the Fighting Illini. They got a new head coach at their school, Lovie Smith. Can he bring success to the table at Illinois? I believe that he is the perfect fit for them. You're just going to have to give him a little more time. And I'm talking about 3-4 years, and, they'll be competing good. I might be wrong, I might be right, but that's what I got. And going on to Iowa, they had a great season last year, but at the end they did lose to the Big Ten championship to Michigan State in like the last few seconds. They go to the Rose Bowl and lose badly to Stanford, but they got a returning quarterback, C.J. Beathard, who can play ball. And, they've got a few great guys coming back. I believe that they are in contention to win the West and could win the Big Ten championship. I hope they do. Now we're moving on to Minnesota with new head coach Tracy Claeys. He took over for the later part of the season, is now named the head coach. I believe they're going to be doing okay this year. You're going to have to give him a little more time to be head coach, and he's going to have some time to recruit and whatnot. But I believe they're going to be okay this year. Now moving on to Nebraska. The question for them is, can they get back in it like they were back in the 90s and in the 80s? And, they were the team that nobody could beat. I believe that they have a chance this year with athletes they got coming back. But do I have them winning a national championship or winning the Big Ten? No, but I believe they can make it 8-4, maybe 9-3 this year. And I believe they're going to be real good this year. Moving on to Northwestern. What do you say? They've been the upset team every year. They upset Stanford first game of the year, and that knocked Stanford out of the college football playoff, basically. I do believe that they still will be the upset team, the team that upsets a big opponent, but I do believe that they will make it to a bowl game this year, and will they ever win a bowl game? They're 2-10 in bowl games throughout the entire history of Northwestern. It's been hard for them to reach to a bowl game, but I believe that they can make it this year. Moving on to Purdue, will they win some games? They had some heartbreakers last year in real close games, and I don't see them doing that good this year. Honestly, I have them probably 5-7, 4-8, but can they win some games? Maybe, but if they can win some games in the West and maybe a two in the East, so it just depends on how they do. And finally, we have Wisconsin. They lost they lost big to Alabama the first game of the year. They did win. They did beat USC though in the bowl game that they played this year. So a lot of people have them winning the West, and I believe that they can win the West. Now we're moving on to my predictions. In last place, I have Illinois. Like I said, you got to give Lovie Smith a few years before he actually has success over at Illinois. Moving on to number 6 is Purdue. Again, I believe they won't have that good of a year just because of who they are. Northwestern, I do believe they can get back in it. They still will be the upset team, but I have them going to a bowl game. They'll at least be 6-6 or 7-5 before they hit a bowl game. Number 4 is Minnesota. Tracy Claeys, he's been there a while at Minnesota. He's known the players. I believe he's going to have some success this year and maybe great success towards the future. Moving on to number 3, I have Nebraska. I believe they'll be back in it, but again, where they at in the East, it's hard for them to win with the amount of talent that they have. At number 2 is a toss-up between Iowa and Wisconsin, and I have Iowa at number 2 and Wisconsin winning the West. I just believe Wisconsin will get the job done this year with the success that they had later on in the season last year, and I believe that they can do good this upcoming season. Now we're moving on to the East, and there are some big schools in the East. Probably the most famous schools out of the Big Ten, which is Indiana, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, and Rutgers. Anything can happen on this side right here. I will say it is hard to win in the East because of those big three schools that is common between everybody: Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State. We're going to start off with Indiana. I believe that they will be an upset team. They might make it to a bowl game this year. They lost a few close games last year. I believe they went 4-8, but I believe they can make it to a bowl game this year, maybe squeezing at 6-6. Then we go on to Maryland. They've had some success moving up to the Big Ten, and I probably have them going 6-6, maybe 7-5 this year. It just depends. Now we move on to the Big Three. We're going to start off with Michigan. Second-year head coach Jim Harbaugh. He's had a lot of people talk about him on the offseason. He's stuck up some controversy. Not controversy, but hey, he's getting players, he's getting attention, and they got the #1 recruit at a high school last year. I believe that they can do really, really good this year, but again, they've got the Big Three. The thing is, they have to travel to Michigan State and to Ohio State. Those are going to be the two big games for them. Next is Michigan State. They won the East last year, and they won the Big Ten. They did get blown out by Alabama in the semifinals. So can they rebound? I believe that they can. I just don't believe they have the amount of talent that they have to win the Big Ten East this year. Moving on to Ohio State. They have a young team this year, but they have a young team with a lot of talent, kind of like what they had a few years ago when they won the national championship, And I believe that their quarterback, JT Barrett, I believe that he can do the job for Ohio State and bring them to a national championship. He is what Urban Meyer expects. And, he's a junior this year, so he's had a lot of time going he's had a lot of reps going in. I believe he could be the best quarterback in the country as long as the Big Ten. Moving on to Penn State. This is make or break for James Franklin. Honestly, he's on the hot seat this year. If he doesn't do well, I don't believe that he'll be back coaching for the next year. But Penn State, they had a lot of the controversies that happened a few years ago, but they're getting on the right track, and I believe that James Franklin is doing the best he can, but he's got to win some big games this year. He's got to beat a Michigan State, or an Ohio State if he wants to keep his job and to keep everything going. But I have them going at least 7-5, making it to a bowl game. But they've got to do it for themselves to be real good. Now we're moving on to Rutgers, the final team in the East. Are they going to get back in it like they have been? They're still going to be an upset team this year, the team that upsets people. And new head coach Chris Ash, I believe that he's going to be doing a real good job at Rutgers. Like I said, you got to give him some time before he can do anything good this year. And for the predictions, I have in 7th place Rutgers. You got to give the new head coach a few years to get it going. At 6th place is Indiana. They're not going to be that good, but I have them at least going to a bowl game. At number 5 is Maryland. They're still going to be in the middle of the Big Ten. Moving on to number 4, I have Penn State. Like I said, James Franklin, he doesn't do good. He's going to get fired this year. Now we're moving on to the Big 3. Out of these 3, I have Michigan State coming in 3rd place. 2nd place, I have Ohio State. And I'm with everybody else. I have Michigan winning the Big Ten East side this year. And, Jim Harbaugh, he's going to be having great success this year and for the next few years to come. Now for the Big Ten Championship with Wisconsin and Michigan. I believe that Michigan is going to win the Big Ten this year, and I believe that they are a college football playoff team as long as they don't, get upset by somebody or they don't mess up during the season. But that's who I have for the Big Ten on this upcoming football season.